Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. Sorry for the delay, but let's get started. I once received an email from a woman who we'll call Adriana, and she told me a story of a man who aggressively pursued her, and she wanted to know if I thought this person was a sociopath. But Adriana's email revealed important information about her frame of mind. She was feeling an emotional void, and that made her vulnerable to falling for a sociopath. I'm Donna Andersen, and again, I apologize for the delay tonight. Technology can make you crazy. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about an important strategy in protecting yourself from sociopaths, and that is knowing your vulnerabilities. This is a live streaming show, and I'll answer your questions at the end of this short presentation, so please send them to me as we go along. What happened to Adriana? She told me that she was 61 but looked like her late 40s. She had been divorced for 10 years, and although she just wanted to be loved, she was having no success in finding a partner. She said that she felt she had no purpose because she couldn't find him. She couldn't find the right guy. And so as Adriana was working a booth at a trade show, a man approached her, looked her right in the eye, and asked, "So where are you taking me to lunch?" Adriana was kind of taken aback. But they did have lunch, and then dinner, and then the guy put the moves on her. Adriana fell for him, but within 2 weeks found out that he was a liar who only cared about himself. She also saw 8 of the 10 red flags of love fraud. So her first question to me was, how can I have such deep feelings for this man that I have known for 2 weeks? The answer was that Adriana was the target of calculated seduction. She didn't provide a lot of detail about her interaction, but a man who walks up and says, "Where are you taking me to lunch?" had obviously targeted her. So I assumed that he also employed the rest of the strategies in the sociopath's playbook, like love bombing and calling her his soulmate. Suddenly, of course. I explain them all in my book, Red Flags of Love Fraud, 10 Signs You're Dating a Sociopath. The bottom line is that for 2 weeks, Adriana was probably subjected to over-the-top attention, and she responded. Adriana's second question was, is the guy a sociopath? Well, she saw 8 of the 10 red flags of love fraud, so that's a pretty good warning. But it really doesn't matter if the guy doesn't show all 10 signs or doesn't completely qualify as a sociopath. He certainly was qualified as bad news, and that's exactly what I told her. But reading this email, I was more concerned about Adriana's frame of mind. Remember, she had come out and said, "I feel that I have no purpose because I can't find him." This is precisely the type of emotional void that a sociopath will happily step into. Now, I am not criticizing Adriana. I know exactly how she feels because I once felt the same way. I was smart, attractive, successful. I looked younger than my years. But none of that made any difference to me because I was without a partner. That emptiness in my heart was certainly palpable to me, and probably to the sociopath as well. James Montgomery, my sociopathic ex-husband, quickly figured out that I was an easy target. He complimented me, poured on the attention, proclaimed that I was the woman he'd been waiting for all his life, and he painted this shimmering picture of how wonderful our life together would be. And I swallowed it all, hook, line, and sinker. Here's the take-home lesson. Sociopaths specialize in preying on lonely people. If you're walking around with a big hole in your heart, instead of the fulfillment of love, imagine that you are also walking around with a big target tattooed on your forehead. Know that you are vulnerable. Sociopaths have an uncanny ability to sense emptiness, and for this reason, if you feel lonely, it is critically important that you know the red flags of love fraud. Sociopaths all seem to use exactly the same strategies and tactics. Therefore, I believe that these involvements with destructive individuals are totally preventable if you know what to look for, and if you spot the warning signs, you get out. But this is also key. You also need to know yourself. Sociopaths target vulnerabilities, and there are many more vulnerabilities besides loneliness. You could be overly trusting. You could be wounded from past betrayals. You could be suffering from grief. Vulnerabilities are not necessarily flaws. We are all vulnerable in some way. It's part of being human. In fact, we must allow ourselves to be vulnerable in order to have a fulfilling relationship. But we also have to recognize that vulnerabilities leave us open to exploitation by sociopaths. So, to help you become aware of your vulnerabilities and recognize when someone is trying to take advantage of you, I put together a companion for my Red Flags of Love Fraud book, which is called the Red Flags of Love Fraud Workbook. It's real small, skinny little thing, only 40 pages, and it has a bunch of checklists and questions to ask yourself and places to record the answers. The purpose of this workbook is to enable you to think carefully about your internal reality so that you can strengthen your resistance to predators. And if you've already been snagged by a sociopath, answering the questions will help you to figure out how it happened and what you have to do to get out of the involvement. So the Red Flags of Love Fraud Workbook helps you to build the internal fortitude to resist or leave a sociopathic relationship. There's a dozen checklists and 50 questions, and they're all carefully constructed to help you think about your involvements. Here's what you'll clarify. First, any personal beliefs that make it hard for you to recognize an exploiter. Number 2, your traits and needs that make you vulnerable to a sociopath. Number 3, your positive qualities that a sociopath would just love to take advantage of. Number 4, the strategies a predator may use to seduce you. 5, your reactions to internal warnings or warnings from other people. 6, why you may overlook or excuse bad behavior. And 7, how to leave an abusive individual once and for all. So the workbook is available both printed or as a PDF, and you can't get it on Amazon. It's only in the Love Fraud store, and it's really inexpensive, $4.95. There's a link in the description below. The key to keeping sociopaths out of your life is to know that they exist, know the warning signs, and know yourself. A sociopath cannot have an exploitive relationship with you if you do not cooperate. So you might want to check out both Red Flags books to help give yourself the tools to protect yourself. Okay, so let's see if we have some questions. So Mark says, the case is going on because she wants huge amounts of money, and I gave her a baby, and she's been humiliating me and abusing me and verbally going through every known source to defame me. Yeah, it's amazing how vicious. I mean, you hate to call a parent vicious, but I have heard horror stories about what people will do in order to extract revenge, control, subjugation from the other parent of their child. It's just awful. I recommend that you educate yourself totally about these disorders. I also recommend that at the same time you work on your internal healing, because that will actually help a lot. I know it can seem impossible when you have all these things going on and you're trying to figure out how to solve these problems, and this person is intentionally hurting you and defaming you. Know that it's not you. Know that this is her. Know that there is nothing you ever could have done to make her treat you any better. This is just what she is. And do what you can to release the emotional angst about the whole thing, and to kind of feel your suffering but let it go, because the more calm and centered you can become, the more you will have the tools to be able to deal with the situation. It's difficult, it's hard, but if you recognize that it's not your fault, that you just happen to be the guy that she targeted, somebody else would have had the same experience, it does help to know that it's her and not you. Okay. Sociopath survivor says it feels impossible to trust anyone nowadays with all this technology. People can be on sex sites or dating sites on their cell phone right under your nose, and it's so unsettling. Yeah, this is true. However, the key is not the technology. The key is the person. And a person who is prone to being deceitful would do it anyway, whether or not there was this level of technology. So the answer is always what's going on inside of you. And if you're feeling an inability to trust someone, this is real. I'm certainly not saying that to just disregard those feelings, but recognize that it's a signal that you have internal healing to do. You have to find a way to get the disappointment, the pain, the grief, the betrayal, all of these things that have happened to you. You have to find a way to get them out of your system. And the way you usually do that is by actually allowing yourself to feel the pain. You can't think it away. Even if you know why you're upset or why you're angry, knowing on an intellectual level helps, but it does not solve the problem. The real healing comes through experiencing the emotions, let them run through your system, and then releasing them. That's what needs to be done. And the more you can do this and the more you can get centered in yourself, the more your energy will shift and an appropriate person will come into your life, and you'll be able to trust yourself. The key is actually being able to trust yourself and to trust your instincts. And once you feel like you can do that, that gives you the strength to trust another person. So the answer is always within, always. So work on your own recovery, and that will pave the way to be able to find what you're looking for. Haven't entered the dating world yet. Any advice from anyone? Cece. Yeah, Cece, just what I just said. Work on yourself. Work on finding any deep levels of pain. Recognize that we all have suffered this, and especially when we've been betrayed by a sociopath, especially with a long-term relationship, there are many, many, many layers of pain and disappointment and grief and emotional upset, and it takes time. It takes time to work them through. And but as you do that, that's what you want to do, because working on yourself gives you the ability to move forward. And then, once you're feeling centered, once you're feeling relatively happy, make a life for yourself without a partner. Join organizations. I think I recommended a few weeks ago to somebody to get a dog, just to be able to have, an excuse to go out and meet people. But, and hopefully we're, starting to come out of this virus situation, and people are getting their vaccines, and hopefully things will, within another couple of months, hopefully settle down or get quasi-normal, and that'll help a lot. I mean, the stress of what's been going on for the past year, on top of being targeted by a sociopath, is just been a lot. It's just been a lot. But hopefully this is coming around. And then do the regular things. I do suggest trying to meet people in person. It's a minefield, the online dating. Yes, it can work, but there's an awful lot of predators out there, so you really have to be on your toes. But then again, they're everywhere. But the key is your internal recovery. The key is feeling centered. The key is feeling that your life is pretty much okay, and it would be nice to have a romantic partner, but things are okay. If you can get to that point, then you're really ready to start doing the dating. Okay. So Story Time with Vinny says, I found mine in an AA meeting. I have actually heard of that before, and in fact, quite a few people I've spoken to have met sociopaths in AA meetings. I guess you've heard of the 13th step. That's what they call the people who show up at AA meetings in order to target other people who are in the group. It's a known phenomenon, definitely something to be wary of, but yeah, it can happen. Okay. So Special Twice says, she, I assume it's a she, but maybe not, was intensely pursued by a narcissistic sociopath. The difference is that I wasn't interested. I hear that a lot. I've talked to quite a few people who were pursued by somebody that they didn't find interested, that they were interested in, but the person pursued and pursued and pursued, and it gets to the point you think, well, gee, this person must really love me. Maybe I should give him a chance or give her a chance. And I recognize that pursuit, or this level of pursuit, is something that sociopaths do. Essentially, they get hooked on an objective, and then they put all their energy into the objective, and if the objective is you, it feels kind of nice for a while, but once you're hooked, you're not so interesting to them anymore. And again, it's not you, it's the way they are. So, okay. Oh, sociopath survivor. I would be delighted to do a high school presentation. I have done them before, so just send me an email, Donna at Lovefraud.com, and we'll talk. I do have presentations for high school kids. I love teaching high school kids because hopefully we can get the information out to them before they get in a really bad situation. Although I can say that every time I've done a high school presentation, kids and also teachers have come up to me to tell me their stories, and they're already in this situation. many sociopaths, in fact, probably most sociopaths, start their abusive behavior in high school. I mean, this is when the disorder often comes to fruition. So who are they targeting but their high school classmates and friends? So high school kids need this information because they can get swept up into these situations, and being young, not knowing what they're dealing with, it can be pretty damaging. So anyway, yes, just reach out to me and we'll talk. Okay. The pain comes from realizing the person you loved never really existed. There is also the shame and embarrassment for having failed to see the signs early on. Yes, that is painful. I mean, to realize that the whole thing was a charade, it really pulls the rug out from under you. However, try to let go of any feelings of shame or feelings that you screwed up. I know when it happened to me, I mean, the person I was most angry with was myself because I fell for this guy's ridiculous claims. Although, of course, I didn't know that they were ridiculous when he was first telling me about them. They all seemed pretty exciting and dramatic. They are professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. They've been doing it for years. And the rest of us are human. Remember, what sociopaths do is they hijack the normal human bonding system. They latch on to things that are normal about us. We are supposed to trust people. I mean, we are biologically programmed to trust people, and that's what they take advantage of. So we're just being human, and they're being predators. So let go of any bad feelings about yourself because you really don't deserve it. Anybody who is a normal, empathetic human being, it can be difficult to see a sociopath because you're not looking for it. And that's how they do it. You know, the world is in darkness. There's such a lack of knowledge, this black void of ignorance about these personality disorders. And unfortunately, that's how they operate. They take advantage of what we don't know. Okay. So here's a question. Sometimes a psychopath will act stupid in front of other people like they didn't commit any of their actions. How to deal with that? Well, it's hard to give a general answer to that question because it depends on the circumstances. It depends on your involvement with this person. You didn't specify like what type of relationship it is. You know, if this person is a partner or a coworker or a friend or something like that. I would say that generally, if you recognize that somebody in your circle of acquaintances is disordered, that's not a good person to have that you should be associated with. Essentially, remember, once a sociopath or a psychopath is an adult, they cannot be rehabilitated. There is no changing them. They're never going to be a normal, empathetic, caring person. So there's no point having this person in your life. Sometimes that leads to some hard choices, like cutting off friends, cutting off family members, finding a new job. But that's the best thing. Now, if that's not possible, you certainly want to protect yourself. You certainly want to keep any interactions on a surface level. You don't want to have any in-depth interactions with this person. if you recognize that someone is disordered, you just have to be on mental red alert. You need to watch and do whatever you need to do to protect yourself and limit, if you can't totally avoid, at least limit any involvement with this person. Okay, so Susie asks about the books on YouTube that teach men how to prey on women. Well, that's awful. I personally haven't looked at them. I don't quite know what's going on. But if you know the warning signs of a predator, you are ahead of the game. And, actually, you could go look at those websites just to see what these people are talking about. And if you start to see what they're teaching, then you got a problem on your hands. So I guess that's another way of looking at it. I certainly don't advocate that type of material, but it can be educational. You can learn, what they're trying to teach people to do. And if you see those behaviors, you know what you're dealing with. Okay. Oh, how do you handle one in your family when you can't go no contact? Yeah, that becomes very difficult. As I said, in those cases, keep the involvement very superficial. Sometimes the best thing to do is to, be civil, pleasant, but definitely do not get heavily involved. I mean, I know of plenty of people who talk about family members and essentially everything is just very superficial. Sometimes there may be family members that recognize what's going on, that you can share your concerns with. You probably have to very delicately figure out who in the family sees what's going on and who doesn't. And then it helps to have allies. So if you can figure out that somebody is like you and sees the problem, you can often work together. I mean, keep in mind that one of the things that sociopaths in families do is pit everybody against each other and, cause all kinds of chaos and make it so that everybody distrusts everybody else. But I have definitely heard of cases where other members of the family have figured out what's going on and have essentially united against the sociopath. So that might be a possibility, depending on, who's still drinking the Kool-Aid and who's figured out what's going on. So maybe you can find some allies and then that would be helpful. Okay, so Maroka says, how do you know the right time and the right way to date? Well, maybe you're just got here to the video. I was talking about this a little earlier tonight, but essentially what you want to do is work on your own recovery, make sure that you've processed the pain. If you've been married to two sociopaths, that's a fair amount of pain to go through. So you want to make sure you process it. You want to get it out of your system and then build a life for yourself. Have friends, have activities. As I said earlier, hopefully things will start getting back to normal once we get these vaccines out there. When you feel centered, when you feel like your life is basically okay, you're not desperate, you'd like to have a partner, but you're okay being on your own for the time being, that's when things are about ready. And also keep in mind, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, that your first involvement may not be the happily ever after person you'll spend the rest of your life with. I mean, it's okay to have some interim involvements, some, dating, having fun for a while, just to get back in the swing of things. And that's totally fine. But as I said before, the answer is always within. The answer is always how you feel about yourself and what's going on inside of you. Okay, so we have a question here. Do sociopaths have sexualities? Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but what I can say is that some sociopaths are heterosexual, some are homosexual, gay, straight, lesbian, transgender. I've gotten information from people who have been involved with people with all types of preferences. So if that's what you mean, then yes, anybody with any type of personality can also be a sociopath, no matter, what direction that person is interested in sexually, they can still be sociopathic. So, okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Again, I apologize for the delay. That's what happens when you upgrade your USB hub. Oh well. Okay, so thanks so much. I'll be back next week with another episode of Lovefraud Live. See you later.